Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our self-healing class here at First Center, First Church here in New York City. Special welcome to all of you on our Zoom call. It's a large class. We're thrilled that you can be with us. We also know that many of you are watching us now on YouTube on our live channel, which is producing our videos 24 hours a day. So however you're finding us, we're glad you have found us. And we're getting all your dozens and dozens of comments and questions. And tonight's lesson in part is to answer a few of your questions, which is the title that we came up for tonight. It was how can we be sure, about our spiritual work. Before we get into it, I have a little poem that I found that I'd like to read. It's entitled Unveiling Perfection. In the mirror of my soul, I see a truth unveiled, a light set free. I am as God created me, I say, in the love and light that guides my way. Unfolding, blooming, a work of art, perfectly crafted from the very start. In the tapestry of existence, I find my place, embracing my flaws and shadows with grace. In the mirror's reflection, I see always the divine, a masterpiece of love and intricate design. In every moment, I stand tall and free in the glory of my truth, unapologetically. Through trials and triumphs, I emerge with every step, a new truth to surge. I am as God created me, I declare, a radiant soul beyond compare. So let this truth echo in every heartbeat. I am as God created me, so sweet. In the light, in the love, in the glory I reside, a perfect being forever to guide. So, good evening again, everyone. That poem is important to me because it speaks of a study that I was involved in years ago, which was through the Course in Miracles, and they had a song and a chant, which was, I am as God created me, in the light, in the love, in the glory. We don't always know that. We don't know our perfection. We don't love ourselves enough, at least not in the beginning. So we come together to awaken to the fact that you are an individualization of this eternal presence, and it's in you, it's operating through you. It's the greatest news that you'll ever have, is that you have this thing within you, which was described to me many years ago, the hope of your glory. It's the awakening to, you have this power at your disposal, and that you can use it. So tonight's class, our self-healing class, is about self-exploration and introspection. Some of you have asked in the chats, how can I be sure I'm doing it right? I don't know, I'm not getting results. Part of the problem is people sometimes think they're going to get instant results, and it simply doesn't work that way. How can you know if your affirmative prayers are working? Well, the quick answer is you'll start to have demonstrations. Our theme tonight is demonstrations or manifestations. Some of you think of that word. As you're working the teaching, as you're communing with life, you will start to see manifestations. They will seem serendipitous. In other words, things will start happening that didn't happen before for you. As you lift your thinking up, you hitch your wagon to the stars, as Emerson would talk about, you'll begin to see a reflection of your expanded awareness. So our question for tonight is, how can I be sure? And of course, that question reminded me of a song from the Bee Gees from the 70s, which can't remember the song, but the refrain was, I think it was, how can I be sure in a world that's constantly changing? And that's a good question for all of us, because life is constantly changing. It's the one constant, and people don't like it, most people. Some of you will say, well, you love change, and I've grown to, I know it. See, I'm okay with it because I know it's all unfolding for the good. I will say that I didn't always know that. Many of us want to hold on like white knuckle. You want to hold on to everything and everyone because we don't like our worlds to be turned upside down. But the thing is, change is there for you and for me, for all of us. It's not that life is trying to do something to you. Each of us are spiritual beings, and we're unfolding and we're growing and we're evolving. So the very things that come into our world are really happening for our greater good. And that requires a lot of spiritual understanding and discernment. And I know, a lot of people coming into our class, you just starting to work some of this stuff out. So we want to welcome you if you're new. All I can say is just keep hanging in there. Attend as often as you can. This class is, I've said before, it's like an insurance policy. You just pay a little bit with your time each week, and we'll remind you of some things that you don't remind yourself of. We'll remind you that you're wonderful. We'll remind you that you're an inlet and outlet of God activity, and we'll remind you that you can heal your life. And by that I mean you can heal any aspect of your life. Wherever there seems to be any lack of love or supply, or you're not being understood, or whatever it is that is your particular challenge, you can apply this teaching in these classes to heal your life, to make great improvement. So my question for the evening again is, how can we be sure that we're doing it right, that we're working it right? Again, I would say look to your life. I ask that question every Thursday. What has it been like being you? And that's because I'm trying to get into your heads a little bit, so you'd be reflecting for yourself. What am I spinning in terms of what am I saying to myself 24 hours a day? What lives inside? Because you have the ability to change a lot of that conversation around if you become a little bit more introspective, a little bit more sometimes militant in terms of stamping out the negatives. So again, how well are you using this awesome inner power that you possess? It was suggested to me years ago that I need to partner up with it. And I said, what do you mean? Well, we understand that this power is within us. And as you engage it, and as you start to work with the law of attraction, you start to meditate, you realize this power is within. And it offers guidance. And if I will listen to its guidance, there will be a quickening within me, and I will start to create the kind of life that I want. Ernest Holmes would suggest, he's the founder of Science of Mind, he would suggest that there's power for good in the universe. And he would add to that, greater than you, of which you are a part. So that would suggest this power that's everywhere present is in you. It's the best kept secret of the world. It's in you. You have it. Everything you're looking for is right there inside of you. So you can partner up with it. My dad used to say, spirit won't be the uninvited guest, meaning always invite that awareness into your consciousness. And then you start to move from that place where you're connected. That's the first step of affirmative prayer, is the recognition that I'm one with the one. You're one with the power, you're one with the light. You have everything you need within you. Louise would say, deep in the center of my being, there's an infinite well of love. And there is. Deep at the center of your being, you're connected with everything. You're connected with life itself. This immortal, this all-powerful, all-knowing, this thing is deep at the center of your being. So as we delve into the exploration of ourselves as awakening spiritual beings, let's ask ourselves how this applies to our connection with Source, and how we're doing. Are we making progress in our journey of self-discovery and self-awakening? So how do you stand with the idea that you're one with the one? And how do you think of how do you assess yourself with making progress in life, and awakening to the idea that, I'm one with the one. I am God. I am as God created me. I mean, you really are. So, how are you with that? Are you accepting that? Are you accepting that you have this power? And how are you in its utilization? Are you using your power constructively? Are you a lifter? Are you here? Are you the person who's saying great and good all the time? Or do you tend to be using your power in a negative way, or you find yourself being overly critical of yourself or others? Are you holding on to judgments and anger and all of that? Because if you're using your power in that way, it's going to show up in your life. A reflection of that type of thinking shows up. There was one of the past RSI leaders who used to say, life gives clues. And what she was trying to say is, there's this expression, if it's in your life, that means it's in your consciousness. If there's a lot of discord and disharmony and, mayhem in your life, what we do here is we don't talk about other people or what's going on. We bring it back to ourselves and we realize, okay, what's within me that's sowing the seeds for this stuff? Because life is always going to be a reflection of what your inner reality is. So that's what we're always working. We're not doing our work in the world, we're doing our work inside of ourselves. So that's what self-healing is ultimately about. So let's talk about spiritual backgrounds. Throughout our lives, many of us have questioned our spiritual beliefs and our relationship with this divine energy or higher power. I, like many of you, grew up in a traditional faith with the idea of a loving parental deity, God. But there were other parts of that belief system that would suggest the deity also stood in judgment, sometimes was vengeful and wrathful, and there were all kinds of things going on in the belief system I grew up with that would suggest it wasn't perfect. I don't know about anybody else what you all were exposed to, but I got the message that I was born in sin and I must be saved. I must enter the kingdom, be saved to enter the kingdom. And there were a lot of things that were difficult for me to explain away, and I simply had to accept. And then I'm thinking, for people on the call, there's people listening all over the country and the world, hundreds and hundreds of different interpretations of this higher power people hold and how it operates. Most of us initially learned what we learned from our families, and those of us who are on the call tonight who are tuned into a Louise Hay call are part of what we call a New Thought movement. Louise Hay was a significant leader of our movement, perhaps the most influential person in the last 50 years, perhaps longer. She was a practitioner here in New York City at our center, and she kept it simple. You don't need to make this teaching complicated, though many people do. Raymond Charles Barker, who founded the New York chapter here, said, we don't need to complicate our teaching. So Louise Hay would say, what I give out comes back to me. And that simple line, what I give out comes back to me, encapsulates the law of attraction and the power of our thoughts and actions. You might think of this as like throwing out a boomerang. When you send out positive energy, when you send out kindness and generosity, they eventually come back to you and enrich your life. For instance, imagine helping a friend move and then later receiving unexpected help when you need it. It's kind of like it's the way it works. In a similar way, if we're constantly complaining, where we find ourselves being the person who's always complaining about the restaurant or the traffic or complaining about what other people are doing, we're not accepting life as it's showing up, and we're always the person who's got something negative to say. We create an environment of that. We don't know that we're doing it to ourselves, but as you stay with this teaching, you're going to realize, oh my goodness, I've got to get a handle on this stuff in myself, because it's a form of self-sabotage. Or here's another example. Consider a day when you woke up in a bad mood and then it just snowballed from there. You found the whole day seemed to go to hell. It started with you. So there's a saying from 12-step programs, which is, it's never too late to start your day over. If you're having one of those days or you find yourself, you're like, there I went again, as soon as you catch yourself, stop yourself. In the name of love, just stop and start again. And never criticize yourself when you find yourself Just be grateful you caught yourself and begin again, lovingly, right? So the principle we're talking about, the divine principle, works with our thoughts. And if we're dwelling on our fears and our doubts, that will tend to attract situations that reinforce those feelings. The idea is not about escaping this cycle or the problems of life, but rather being mindful of the energy and emotions we put out and learning to harness them. Again, Holmes said there's power. Learning to harness these energies in a positive way. Holmes said there's power for good in the universe, and we can use it, and we can. The idea is not about escaping negative circumstances, but rather being mindful of the energy and emotions, and again, learning to direct them. That's our executive power that Ernest Holmes would speak about. We want to shape our reality towards positive ends. Louise Hay said, change your thinking and then change your life. By monitoring our thoughts, which you hear me talk about often, by being the guardian at the gate and deliberately shifting your thoughts and thinking towards positivity. As we do this, we're going to invite much better outcomes, and we also then lead other people by example, and we inspire people to do the same. So this week we had a lot of questions about people wondering if it was working for them. And of course it's working for you. It's going to respond to you in the same way, to the extent, what you put in, you get out. We come from a great line. This teaching comes from a great line of people who were proficient in healing. Our gatherings introduce you to a teaching and healing method that can heal your life and greatly improve any condition. The question of how can we be sure gently urges us to reflect where we are with our beliefs. Think back moments to when your perception of a higher power was different. And think of how it's shifted now, like I described for myself. I had a punishing idea of a higher power once upon a time. I encountered a practitioner years ago. You've heard me talk about the story before. And she said, you were the child, Greg, of a lesser God, a God that answered you sometimes and sometimes that didn't. And she says, when you encounter the new thought teaching, she said, you really begin to embrace the idea that the universe so loves you that it responds to your every single thought. It doesn't miss a single one. So with that understanding that life is reflecting your thoughts and your thinking, your emotions, then we want to do the work to shift that around. So maybe some of you have transitioned from seeing God as an anthropomorphic figure. And, I remember from my early catechism days, it was like usually a guy up in the sky with a beard. And there might have been pearly gates and all of that stuff, or there'd be some other figure. And that would be true for many of the religions in the world. But, what we come to here is we start to understand and recognize there's something much more expansive and much more benevolent that's not out to get you. In fact, the whole universe is here and it reflects you. It reflects your every thought and your desires and all your heartfelt wishes. It says yes to what you know and what you believe deep in your heart. And energy resides within us and everyone throughout the world, and it responds to every single one of us, all of our thoughts, our individual consciousness. The universe, again, so loves you that it responds to every thought you think. Are you sure of that yet? See, that's something to get excited about. I have that power. That's the thing you want to say. I am as God created me, whole and complete. I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. These are really worthwhile affirmations to have. To tell yourself that this, whatever is happening, this is God in my life right now. That every encounter is a holy encounter. These types of affirmations will help you heal your life. When you find yourself off kilter and pointing to the other person, stop, simply stop, and then start over again. I'd like to make everybody in the call tonight, it's a suggestion, to make a commitment to double down on your affirmations and your affirmative prayers to the point where you start to see for yourself that this works. Don't just take my word for it. Ernest Holmes, who was our founder, he wasn't a big believer in churches. he was a big believer in you having a personal demonstration yourself. And that happens through your own practice. The ministers, the teachers, we're good at helping you. We keep presenting the material because we're here to keep reminding you how the truth of your being, that you're an individualization of the divine. And we'll keep reminding you of that. And that's our purpose and our function. But the real star of this is the teaching, because the teaching always brings you back to you. Say to yourself, I am as God created me. I'm whole and complete. Louise again said it's all very simple. But let me add, it requires a certain amount of willingness on our part. From a 12-step program that helped me a lot some 40 years ago, willingness is the key. It's the key that opens every door. It's the key to spiritual realization. We must learn to let go of everything that gets in the way. Another line that's been very helpful to me for a long time, which is love holds no grievances. So if you're holding on to anything, please, for your sake, let it go. Any resentment, any grievance, wherever it lives in you, scan your brain and think about it throughout the day and every night. Wherever any of that exists, let it go. Love holds no grievances. Do an inventory. If there's any darkness within, any judgment, grudge, or place of self-righteousness, or self-contempt, or if you're holding on to any resentment towards others, find the way within yourself to let it go. Love yourself enough to let it all go. So what's your goal? Maybe you don't have one. I'm going to pass on one of mine to you for tonight, which is the peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function, and my life. Now, I borrowed that from the Course in Miracles some 25 years ago or more. Again, the peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function, and my life. I'd invite anyone to think about this affirmation, this line, for a very long time. Journal and think about what you're allowing in your life and putting into your life that's more important than maintaining peace. Again, my goal is the peace of God is my one goal, my purpose, my function, and my life. Think about long and hard whatever you're putting into your life that's more important to you than maintaining peace. You, each of us, have the ability to create peace and harmony in your life, but you must want it more than any need you have to be in judgment. We want to get to the place where we have few divisive opinions and or judgments. The spiritual fact is we are one with one another, and we are one with life. Life, spiritual life, the energy that we call God, judges nothing and no one. We really forget that other people that we encounter are evolving spiritual beings, and we judge them. And we get upset when people don't behave or live up to some notion or expectation we have. We get into conflict. And then we're equally hard on ourselves. We, in our daily affirmations, and as we do our work on self-esteem and self-love, want to embrace the idea that we are all in the perfect place at the perfect time, all the time. Each of us are alive and awake in this God energy. And oh my goodness, it's responding to me and it's responding to you, and it's doing so perfectly. So let's wake up to the idea that there is perfection, and it's in you and it's operating through you, and how great you are. And be grateful that you're here and you have that realization that it's operating within you. What a gift that is. Remember, your word is your wand. So what your consciousness and your thoughts and your saying is creating your life. And if you have that knowledge, which I know some of you do, we don't have time to play small anymore. Once we awaken to that divine fact that you are as God created you, it's no point playing small anymore. It's time to be more loving towards ourselves. And as we really love ourselves, as Louise always said, then we naturally begin to love others, because there's a recognition. We're united with everyone else. Regarding the question, how can we be sure of our own journey of self-discovery? Just keep on the path, and you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. There's a quickening going on with many of you right now. I hear it in your comments every week. Self-discovery is a lifelong thing, and it often prompts us to question, how we're doing. How can we be sure? Stay with the teaching, and you'll be sure because you'll see evidence of it everywhere. If you consider the teachings of Louise Hay, Ernest Holmes, and the New Thought movement, they encourage us to heal our lives by shedding old notions, preconceived judgments of a lifetime often, rigid opinions. The question, how can I be sure, really is about, we have this inner, it's like we don't believe and, and we resist. All I can say again, as I've said like 3 times tonight, willingness is the key. Practice. Practice early, late, and often. Keep seeing the God and the good in all things, and you'll start to see it. As you practice seeing the God and the good moment by moment and day by day, there will be a quickening, and you will see that there is something within you that's fantastic, and it's great, and it's responding to you every moment of your life, and it's liberating and it's healing. As you open yourselves up more to the teaching itself, you'll see opportunities of all kinds. Again, in summary for today, love holds no grievances. Life is very fluid, and you have the power to heal your life and to bring about fantastic change if you're open and receptive and if you really want it. So thank you for being part of our journey tonight, our exploration, our class. And Jimmy and I are here to listen to you. If you're new, say hello, say where you're from. No one's obligated to share, but we love hearing from everyone. So thank you. We'll see you at the other side of the break.